The Fisherman magazine has been around doing this for 52 years, and it's not often that the magazine will take a position when it comes to a situation like this, but we consider this dire. Mike Caruso's here as the owner and publisher, and I spoke to Fred Galafaro this week as well. Because Fred is going through and he's got surgery, but there's a lot of very angry people here, obviously, and they're angry for good reason. They're angry because, as everybody's already spoken, as you've alluded to as well, Jim, the options don't make sense. And what we don't understand is why the recreational fishing community, which the Commerce Department defines as individual anglers, tackle shops, tackle manufacturers, charter and party boats, and fishing stations, why we're facing dire draconian regulations on a stock that's so robust. And for the past 12 years, the Fisherman magazine has made it very clear that we support changes to the federal fisheries law. We have stood open. We have been clear with our readers. We have been clear with members of Congress. We want the federal fisheries law, the Magnuson-Stevenson Act, reformed. And this black sea bass mess is precisely the reason why. Some of the proposed amendments to the law under the Modern Fish Act would help significantly with species like black sea bass, specifically an alternative management approach to which F mortality, as opposed to this poundage-based ACL, accountability measures and the annual catch limits. This is what we need. Similar to striped bass regulations. We set striped bass, we essentially leave it alone. As long as we're not exceeding a certain mortality rate, we have the ability to set it and forget it. Seasons, sizes, and bags are left in place for several years, so long as we don't eclipse the threshold. If there's a conservation issue with the stock, we still have to be responsive. And if there's any downtrend in that stock, we have to be responsive. But again, as we've all talked about, 230% of the rebuild target. We are over target by 2.5 times, and we're asking fishermen to sacrifice yet again. It's irresponsible, it's ridiculous, and it's grossly negligent. But what I have to say is equally ridiculous, irresponsible, and negligent, as has been alluded to, are the actions of one particular member of the New York Marine Resources Advisory Council who is not here tonight. Yet the anger and frustration in this room, in part, was raised because this so-called advisor and his hostile attitude towards the recreational community as a whole has gone to a peak level. One of the primary responsibilities and duties of MRAC is, quote, consult with commercial and recreational harvesters to develop recommendations regarding marine resource program needs. This particular individual does not consult with anyone, but has spent years fostering divisiveness in our community. And after picking a fight on Facebook this week and calling these people poachers and thieves, saying that they're stealing fish, he's run off to Arlington, Virginia, where I can only assume that he's telling people at a national level that we do not have to fix the federal fisheries law. We do. That's the only way out of this mess. And I'm sorry, but the New York DEC must shoulder a burden of responsibility for this festering problem. Not just because he's the commissioner's appointee, but because Governor Cuomo himself just submitted this gentleman's name again to NOAA Fisheries to be the recreational representative for the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. The governor in his letter said of the process for identifying potential candidates, quote, individuals who have attended and provided input at management meetings, including the Marine Resources Advisory Council and public meetings on individual fishery management plans like this one. This must be the meeting then when DEC and Governor Cuomo hear our response. We've got to get better. Senator Phil Boyle, who owns the legislative seat to represent us at the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, has selected as his proxy a man who's also in Arlington, Virginia this week. He's calling for precautionary management approaches. Those 7 options that we discussed, those are precautionary management approaches. 20 years of sacrifice, and what we've heard in this community is, don't worry, sacrifice will lead to better rewards in the future. What we have is a problem at the ASMFC. Our problem at the ASMFC is political appointees talking about precautionary management. The precaution, what Senator Boyle's proxy calls, quote, this is a quote, not great for some charter and party boat operators who fish every day and are pretty good at finding and catching fish on a regular basis. Senator Boyle's proxy ostensibly is at that meeting this week talking about captains here need to do a better job of marketing the experience of fishing. Sea bass is not a catch and release species. The Fisherman magazine officially does not have any input on any of the options. We never do. But what we ask is that the DEC and the Cuomo administration do a better job of vetting candidates for important advisory roles with individuals who actually foster relationships and carry on open and respectful dialogue within the recreational fishing community. Our entire recreational community deserves that. Thank you.